Here is the difference between confidence and self-image. What if everything you believed about confidence was wrong? What if the real problem was never that you weren't brave enough, bold enough, or strong enough, but that somewhere deep inside, in the part of you that nobody else gets to see, you carry an image of yourself that says you are not enough. You've spent years working on yourself. Maybe you read the books, practice speaking up, pushed yourself into rooms that terrified you. And sometimes it works. You walk in confident. You say the right things. You perform. But then you get home. And it's quiet. And in that silence, the old feeling returns. The one that has no name but feels like shame. Like a quiet conviction that no matter how well you did today, it doesn't change what you know about yourself. That feeling is not a confidence problem. It never was. This video is about the thing nobody talks about when they talk about confidence. The hidden psychological structure that sits beneath all of it. The self-image. The identity you formed before you even had words for it. And why, until you understand it and begin to heal it, no amount of courage, achievement, or external success will ever feel like enough. Stay until the end. Because what you're about to understand about yourself may be the most important thing you've heard in years. Asterisk if this already sounds like something you've lived, if any part of this touches something real inside you. Take a second to like this video and subscribe to this channel. These videos are made for the people who are quietly fighting battles nobody sees. You deserve a space that understands you. Asterisk. Picture this. Someone walks into a room and owns it. They speak with ease. They laugh freely. They don't hesitate. From the outside, they are the picture of confidence. People admire them. Envy them even. But later that night, lying in the dark, this same person replays a single comment someone made in passing. A small, almost throwaway remark. And it cuts through them like a blade. They lie there questioning themselves. Wondering if people actually like them or just tolerate them. Wondering if they're as capable as people seem to think. Or if one day everyone will find out the truth. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you're the one people come to for advice, but secretly you doubt every decision you make about your own life. Maybe you're the one who appears composed in a crowd, but falls apart alone. Maybe you work harder than anyone around you, not from ambition, but from a quiet terror that if you stop performing, people will see what you really are. Maybe you've achieved things, real things, but the satisfaction never stays. The moment a goal is reached, something in you immediately minimizes it. Anyone could have done that. It won't last. I just got lucky. And relationships. Maybe that's where it gets most complicated. Because even when someone loves you, genuinely, consistently, clearly, some part of you doesn't trust it. You wait for them to leave. You push them away before they get the chance. Or you shrink yourself down, agreeing with everything, needing nothing, becoming whoever they seem to want you to be, just to avoid the unbearable risk of rejection. This is not a confidence problem. This is what it feels like to live with a broken self-image. So how does it happen? How does a person end up carrying this quiet, relentless belief that they are somehow less than, fundamentally flawed, no matter what they do? It starts earlier than most people realize. The human mind is not born with an identity. It builds one. And it builds it almost entirely from experience, especially from the experiences of childhood, when the brain is most impressionable and the emotional stakes feel absolute. When a child is criticized repeatedly, they don't process it as my behavior was wrong. They process it as I am wrong. When a child is compared unfavorably to others, a sibling, a classmate, a parent's impossible standard, they don't conclude this person has unrealistic expectations. They conclude, I am not enough. When a child is ignored, neglected, or made to feel like their emotions are inconvenient, they don't think, my parents are struggling. They think, I don't matter. This is not weakness. This is developmental psychology. Children are meaning-making machines operating without the emotional tools to contextualize pain. So the pain becomes personal. It becomes identity. And then life adds its own layers. A friendship that ended in betrayal. A romantic rejection that came without explanation. A humiliation in front of people whose opinion mattered. A moment where you needed someone, and they weren't there. Each wound, if left unprocessed, becomes a quiet voice. A vote. Another piece of evidence for the story the self-image is constantly writing. The story that says, this is who you are. This is what you deserve. This is as far as you go. And here's the cruelest part. You may not even know the story is running. Because it doesn't announce itself. It just quietly decides. It decides what opportunities to pursue and which ones to sabotage. It decides who is allowed to love you and how close they're allowed to get. It decides how long you're allowed to feel good before something pulls you back down. Now here is the shift. The reframe that changes everything. Confidence is behavior. Self-image is identity. Read that again. Confidence is behavior, which means it is situational, learnable, and performance-based. You can be confident in a meeting and terrified in a relationship. You can feel confident about your work and completely insecure about your worth as a human being. Confidence responds to skill, familiarity, and context. It is fluid. It moves. Self-image, on the other hand, is the fixed lens through which you experience everything. It is not what you do. It is what you believe you are. And identity always overpowers behavior in the end. This is why the high-achieving person still feels hollow. Why the attractive person still feels unlovable. Why the praised person still feels unseen. Because the confidence was real. The performance was real. But the self-image underneath it quietly whispered a different truth. And the mind almost always believes the whisper over the applause. This is why motivation alone never works. Why affirmations feel empty to people with deep wounds. You cannot think your way out of an identity. You cannot repeat, "I am worthy" enough times to override a bone-deep belief that you are not. Not without actually doing the harder, slower work of addressing what built that belief in the first place. Confidence is the costume. Self-image is the skin. I want to pause here for a moment and ask you something honest. Have you ever felt completely confident around other people, but totally alone with your thoughts? Have you ever wondered what moment, what experience, quietly changed the way you see yourself? Drop it in the comments. You might be surprised how many people are carrying the exact same story. You are not as alone in this as you think. Here is where it gets complicated. Because when the self-image is wounded, the mind doesn't just make you feel bad. It actively works to protect itself. And it does that by keeping you exactly where the wound tells you that you belong. So when something good comes, a real opportunity, a person who sees you clearly, a moment of genuine success, the wounded self-image panics. Not because the good thing is threatening, but because it contradicts the story. And the mind will do almost anything to preserve its story, even when that story is hurting you. This is self-sabotage. And it is not weakness, stupidity, or a character flaw. It is loyalty, painful, unconscious loyalty, to an old identity that once kept you safe. You push people away right when they get close enough to matter. You procrastinate on the opportunity that could change your life. You pick fights in the relationship that is finally, actually going well. You downplay the achievement before anyone else can. You stay small not because you lack ability, but because somewhere in the psyche, staying small feels like home. And the internal conflict this creates is exhausting. Because part of you knows you are capable of more. Part of you wants the love, the success, the peace. But the other part, the older part, the wounded part, keeps pulling the emergency brake right when you're about to arrive. This is not a contradiction. It is a person at war with their own self-image. And that war cannot be won from the outside. No promotion, no relationship, no amount of external validation will end it. Because it was never about what's out there. It was always about what's in here. So what does healing actually look like? Not affirmations. Not positive thinking. Not forcing yourself to feel confident when you don't. Real healing begins with something much quieter and much harder. Honesty. The willingness to stop running from your own story and actually look at it. To ask, what do I believe about myself? Not what I say I believe. What do I actually silently treat as true? What do I expect from relationships? What feels like too much to hope for? What do I immediately assume when things go wrong? Because those answers are the map. They show you exactly where the wounds are. And wounds you can see are wounds you can begin to heal. From there, healing happens in layers. It happens when you find environments where it is safe to exist without performing. When you allow yourself to receive care without immediately looking for the catch. When you start to notice self-sabotaging patterns before they take over. Not to shame yourself, but to gently interrupt them. When you begin building evidence, small, real, consistent evidence, that contradicts the old story. Evidence that you are safe, that you are worthy, that good things are allowed to stay. It also happens in relationships. In being witnessed, truly witnessed, by someone who doesn't leave when they see the parts of you that you've been afraid to show. That experience alone can begin to rewire what you believe is possible for you. Healing the self-image is not a weekend retreat or a breakthrough moment. It is a long, quiet, deeply personal process of choosing, again and again, to update the story, to stop agreeing with the wounds, to treat yourself not as the person your pain told you that you were, but as the person you actually are beneath all of it. Here is the truth you should carry with you after this video ends. You were not born believing you were unworthy. That was taught. And anything that was taught can be unlearned. The confidence you've been chasing was never the goal. It was the symptom you were treating while the real condition, the self-image, went untouched beneath the surface. When you begin to heal the way you see yourself, not perform confidence, but genuinely believe in your own worth, everything changes. Not because the world becomes different, but because you do. The person who believes they are worthy of love experiences relationships differently. The person who genuinely trusts their own value doesn't need external validation to feel stable. The person who has rebuilt their self-image from the inside out doesn't just act confident. They simply are. You don't need to become someone else. You need to come home to who you were before the world taught you to doubt yourself. That journey begins the moment you stop fighting your reflection and start healing it. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. That matters. If this touched something real in you, please subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for someone we love is hand them the language for something they've been silently carrying. The next video is waiting for you. Keep going.